Johannesburg, where tomorrow was supposed to live. They had told her that. Johannesburg glittered like a handful of stars scattered upon the earth. They had said that every street whispered opportunities. Every sunrise carried a new beginning, and every hardworking hand would eventually touch success. What they never told her was that the brightest cities often cast the darkest shadows. Hope, she would later learn, was sometimes the heaviest luggage a traveler carried. The bus hissed to a halt at Park Station. Passengers hurried down the steps, one after another, stretching tired limbs after the long journey from Zimbabwe, their faces worn by countless kilometers suddenly bloomed with joy as they spotted waiting relatives. "Mother, my brother, you're finally here." Tears became laughter. Suitcases disappeared into welcoming hands. Children ran into waiting arms. One by one, everyone found someone. Everyone except Tariro. She stepped down carefully, clutching a faded blue suitcase that had seen better days. Under one arm rested a worn Bible wrapped in a small cloth, and in her trembling hands was a folded piece of paper on which she had carefully written, "Tendai Park Station, Platform 6. She looked around eagerly. "This must be Platform 6, she whispered to herself. Her heart danced with excitement. "Go. I made it." She smiled at the sea of unfamiliar faces, convinced that somewhere among them stood her cousin, waving back. Instead, strangers brushed past her without a second glance. She spotted a tall young man, wearing a jacket, much like the one her cousin had described during their last phone call. "Tendai," she called out joyfully. The man turned around, frowned for a moment, then shook his head. "Sorry, Ceci. Wrong person." Embarrassed, Tariro laughed softly. "So much for my detective skills," she muttered, chuckling at herself. Nearby, the bus conductor shouted, "Last luggage? Anything left behind goes to the depot." The station slowly emptied. Still no Tendai. Perhaps his phone had died. Perhaps traffic was terrible. Perhaps... She reached into her handbag and took out her small cell phone. No network. She tried again. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Finally, one weak signal appeared. She dialed. Silence. Then the cold, emotionless voice answered. "The number you have dialed is unavailable." She frowned. Maybe he's already driving here. She smiled again, trying to convince herself. Minutes became an hour. 1 hour quietly became 3. The afternoon slowly folded itself into evening. The laughter around her disappeared. The station grew quieter. Even the pigeons seemed to know it was time to go home. A woman balancing snacks on her head walked past. Cold drinks, sweets, water. Tariro stopped her. "How much is a bottle of water?" 20 rand. She opened her purse. "Coins." "Only coins." "Not enough." She smiled politely. "It's all right." "Thank you." The vendor nodded and continued walking. Hunger arrived quietly. Loneliness followed close behind. Night slowly wrapped Johannesburg in darkness. The same city that had looked so beautiful beneath the afternoon sun now looked enormous and unfamiliar. The wind became colder. Tariro placed her suitcase against a wall and sat on it. She hugged herself tightly. Above her, countless stars watched silently.
She looked up.
Go. Her voice trembled.
"I'm here."
A tear escaped. Where is he? Memory has a curious way of returning whenever the heart begins to break. Suddenly, she was no longer sitting in Johannesburg. She was back home, back in the dusty village where sunsets painted the sky orange, back where her grandmother stood outside their tiny hut, tying a small cloth around the Bible she now carried. "My child," Gogo had said, her wrinkled hands resting gently on Tariro's shoulders. "Cities have tall buildings, but even tall buildings cast long shadows." She smiled sadly. "Never let hunger make decisions for you." She paused. "Never let loneliness choose your friends, and never sell your dignity to buy survival." Tariro had nodded confidently. "I'll work hard, Gogo. I'll send money every month. Tino will finish school. Rudo will become a nurse. You'll never struggle again, I promise. Gogo had placed the Bible into her hands. When people disappoint you, she tapped the cover gently. Read this. When money disappoints you. She tapped it again. Read this. When your own heart disappoints you. Another gentle tap. Read this. Those had been her final words before the bus disappeared down the dusty road. The cold morning air pulled Tariro back into reality. Johannesburg had not changed. She was still alone. She rubbed her eyes after spending the night sitting upright against her suitcase. A cheerful voice interrupted her thoughts. You're still here?
She looked up.
A skinny street boy, no older than 15, stood smiling at her. His clothes were worn. His shoes had long surrendered to the streets. Yet, somehow, his smile still survived. I'm waiting for someone, Tariro replied. He laughed. Everyone here is... She looked puzzled. Some wait for jobs. He counted on his fingers. Some wait for permits. Some wait for miracles. Then he shrugged. And some are still waiting for yesterday to come back. Despite everything, Tariro laughed. What is your name?
Lucky.
She smiled. That's a beautiful name. He scratched his head. I forgot, he said. The two laughed together. My name is Tariro. Lucky nodded thoughtfully.
Hope.
Then he looked around the busy station. Hope is expensive in Johannesburg. His words hung heavily between them. After a moment, Lucky reached into his pocket and pulled out half a loaf of bread. He broke it in two.
Here.
She hesitated. I can't take your food. What about you? He smiled. I've already eaten. His stomach growled loudly. The two looked at each other, then burst into laughter. Liar, Tariro said. He laughed even harder.
Fine.
Let's both pretend I wasn't hungry. They shared the bread in silence. Sometimes kindness arrives wearing torn clothes. Not everyone who smiles carries good intentions. Across the station, a well-dressed man had been watching them. His polished shoes shone brightly. His expensive watch caught the morning sun. His smile looked warm. Too warm. He walked confidently towards Tariro. My daughter, he said kindly. I've seen you here for days. She stood politely.
Yes.
You've been waiting? The man asked. My cousin was supposed to fetch me, Tariro replied.
I see.
He nodded sympathetically and said, I help young girls find work. Tariro's tired eyes brightened. Really? Very good work. He smiled wider. Very good money. Accommodation included. Lucky stopped chewing. His smile disappeared. Slowly, he leaned closer to Tariro. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Don't go, he said to Tariro. Mr. Doob continued speaking. You'll earn thousands every month. You'll never worry about money again. Tariro swallowed and asked, doing what? For the first time, the man hesitated.
Oh.
He laughed awkwardly. You'll know when we arrive. Lucky stepped between them, his eyes locked onto Mr. Doob's. For a brief moment, silence swallowed the station. Tariro looked from one face to the other. Desperation pulled her in one direction. Instinct pulled her in another. She tightened her grip on the little Bible Gogo had given her. Somewhere inside her heart, her grandmother's voice returned like an echo carried by the wind. Never let loneliness choose your friends. The morning sun climbed higher over Johannesburg, and without knowing it, Tariro stood at the first crossroads that would determine the course of her entire